So the breakthrough. People tell me this is a breakthrough. It makes me feel good. I don't know if it's a breakthrough or not. But here you go. What I'm about to show you is the measure that we've developed and use with a lot of big companies. It's a measure that's catching on. And I can tell you that there's at least 10 Fortune 50 companies who are doing what I'm about to show you as opposed to anything else. And here's the concept. The concept is I like to take a company's value proposition on one wall, put it on one wall, and take your customer's income statement, balance sheet, and put it on the other wall, and make them connect. I do that with a real simple combination of value attributes and this percentage right here. All right? I'm going to explain more in a minute, but these value attributes are those things that you do that are differential to competition used in a forced attribute trade-off method. And so make companies say, okay, how are you different than your competitors? What are the 3, 4, 5, 6 things? And force them through a forced attribute trade-off methodology to rank them, right? What you'll find most companies will do, and if you look at their literature, they'll have a list of 50 things. They'll have a list of 10 things, right? You get no concept for which is more important than the other, so on and so forth. And so it's important to weight and rank and force people to make the trade-offs between what's good and what isn't as good. The second is this number right here, and this number is really simple, right? If you and I are doing business together, right? I saw you were nodding off. So. No, that's not true. If you and I are doing business together and we're in business, we're doing $1 million, right? You're the customer, you're doing business with me because you hope to improve your bottom line as a result, right? I'm doing business with you because I think I can sell you stuff, right? So what's important to you is your operating income. Right? So if you were doing $1 million together, if you can make $30,000 more doing business with me than the next alternative that you have, that's $30,000. I'm selling you $1 million. That's $30,000 over $1 million. That's 3%. That's what that number is. It's very direct, right? And so the concept is I'd like to understand, because I know I'm supposed to have a value proposition. I know it's supposed to be differential. I just would like to understand, is it really there, right? Both from your perspective and my perspective, right? So I take the thing that's the intersection between what's most important to my customer and what's most important to me, and I just put it in a quotient, right? So that 3%, there's not a company going that doesn't need to earn 15%, 20% operating income to stay in business to cover the cost of capital, right? So if the part they're doing with me, they can get 3% more than their next best alternative, that's a very meaningful number, very meaningful, right? So there's a growing number of companies that are starting to understand what is that number for them and their customers, right? Am I a commodity? Is that a 0%, which is what a 0% would mean? Am I negative? Am I worse than their next alternative? Is it positive? Is it 6, 7? Is it 10%? If it's 10%, that's real significant stuff. And I use that to help companies answer. And so let me mention just a little bit more about this DVP / differential value proposition. So we do it not just in terms of what is currently valuable to a customer. We start with what does a company think their value proposition is, and how is that differential, and how much that's worth to their customer, right? We help companies figure out how they go out onto the market and figure out from their customer's perspective what their customers view that to be, right? And what is it worth to them? And you see, in this case, it's actually negative, and this is actually real live data. But most importantly, and so this is a learning for B2B marketers. It's what does it look like in 18 to 24 months? What does the customer see about me that causes them to continue to do business with me, right? If I always say this, if it were your $1 million, Mr. Customer, how would you invest that? All right? So again, we'll just use the GE Canadian Pacific example. If I'm General Electric, I spend billions of dollars, right? The only reason I spend that money is so that my customer can be better off doing business with me, right? And so I'm asking a simple question of Canadian Pacific. I'm going to give you $1 million. How would you spend it? Because business is about investing. Business is about investing money and getting a return for myself and creating value for my customers, and that's all business is about. There's nothing more to it. Nothing more. Okay? So to think that I'm going to make those investments and not even talk to my customer is the most ridiculous thing on the planet. Right? I liken it to a marriage. Right? I know all of you aren't married or a significant relationship. Right? What's the number one reason why relationships fail? Marriages, relationships, what's the number one reason? The other person. Communication. Communication, right? Every one of you knows that. Every one of you. But let me tell you something. And let me ask you this question. Do you think in business that all of a sudden that answer is not true? Do you think that in a situation between General Electric and Canadian Pacific somehow that same idea is not true? Because let me just tell you that it is true, right? And the number one reason that those relationships and businesses break down is because they don't talk. In a serious way. They golf, they have dinner, they do all the surface things, just like I do with my wife, but they don't really talk, right? They don't really talk about what's important. And so what I'm trying to get at is the most important thing on this picture is this right here. It's about talking to your customer about how they would spend that $1 million, right? How would they spend it? Where should it be spent? And is it worth something to them? And having that conversation, a critical conversation, right? So that we get at the essence of business. From a metric perspective, I can tell you that the most important numbers on here is not that number. And that's where we fail when we do customer satisfaction, we do loyalty. We just look in the current dimension. And the most powerful indicator of future performance is not that number, it's the difference between this number and that number. I can tell you that if I have a customer, right, even if they view me as being lesser than my next competitor, if they see something about me that says, there's hope, I see a path, right? I think that you can go from where you're at to something positive. If they see that, if that's in their head, it's the most powerful correlation to the future of my business with that customer than any other thing, right? As soon as that number goes flat, as soon as the today number and the future number come together, they see, you know what, oh, you're a -1 today and you're a 0 in the future, the business is at risk, right? Because I've lost the hope. I've lost that customer in terms of their hope that I'm going to do something wonderful. Okay? So we take all that information, and this is where, as marketers, I'm talking as marketers, we need to do a better job of connecting to the C-suite, right? And what connects to the C-suite is finance. What connects to the C-suite is dollars. The point of the list is to take all that information I just covered with you and translate it into dollars and cents for the customer. So what this is over here, this is the coolest thing ever, is if I do these things, how much is it worth to my customers? How much is it worth to them, right? And I want to overuse GE, but if I'm Jeff Immelt, that's very powerful information. It says, you know what, if I do this, that's $3 million for my customer.